Okay, and we are now recording. Okay. Yeah, I'm really pleased we finally managed to do this. And here's our little interview thing that I did. Our next video is an interview with Joe Prestidge, who is a homelessness outreach support worker based normally in central London. Joe was one of a number of individuals chosen to go on a transatlantic exchange organised by PIELink in the UK and the National Alliance to End Homelessness in the States. Joe went to look at trauma-informed care services as they have developed in New York, and looking at how an awareness of trauma can be converted into practical ways of enhancing the work we do with homeless people. She came back full of enthusiasm and excitement for what she had learned. Wrote an article which we published in Housing Care and Support, and there's a slightly different version of that which is available on the homelessness website. Joe was not the only one on a learning curve. This was our first attempt at doing video interviews, and what you'll find is that after about 7 minutes the video cuts out. You will find about another 10 minutes or so of the interview as a sound file elsewhere on this site. Just click on the links. And in those, Joe talks about, in more detail, what exactly trauma-informed care services entails, how it works in this particular population, what she learned, what she came away with, and something of how she proposes to integrate this new awareness, this new approach, into her own work and into providing and offering training, say, to other organisations interested in working the same way. The interview was great fun, and I hope that that you'll enjoy watching it as much as we enjoy actually making the video. So where should we start? Let's start with me just asking quickly to explain who you are, how you came to be on this trip to the States.
So I'm Joe Prestidge. I have been working in the homelessness sector for just over 6 years in frontline outreach type services in London, and I was doing street outreach first and then moved into an innovative project which worked across London with some of the most entrenched street homeless people. And it's called the Pan-London Personalised Budgets Project.
Pan-London Personalised Budgets
Project for St Mungo's Broadway. Don't know if I'm allowed to mention that.
Yeah, why not?
So I was doing that for 3 years and found out about this transatlantic practice exchange that PIELink had got funding to facilitate.
And PIELink is a large national charity that does lots of sort of facilitating and good practice.
Yeah, good practice, policy, and they had suggested a couple of good practice areas that were happening in the States that we could look at. But I wanted to know if there was something that I could do more in my role of going out onto the street and just interacting with people, because I found that a lot of my clients, whereas some it was quite easy to kind of get them into services, some of them just seemed really unreachable, and others, once I got them into accommodation, they were kind of going into crisis, or there was this kind of revolving door population that were going in and out and couldn't maintain. So I wanted to know if there was an approach that was being used in the States, which just got down to kind of basic staff training in terms of interaction and skills that you can use with people, and I found out about trauma-informed care. So I went over to the States. I was based with an organisation in New York for 2 weeks and completely submerged myself in that organisation and found out about trauma-informed care and have been able to implement it into my work.
Mm-hmm. Is trauma-informed care principally in this part of the States, or is it something that's a bit broader? Was it specifically in New York?
No, I think it's being used everywhere, and in lots of different sectors as well. I believe...
I hear talk of trauma-informed education, for example,
yeah,
so it's something that's...
I believe it comes from kind of service user empowerment from when the mental health units were closed down in the 70s, and people and groups of service users getting together to talk about the kind of experiences they'd had. I think that's where it stemmed from, and now it's kind of grown, and the government in America, there is a part of the SAMHSA, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Authority. They have a department which is the National Centre of Trauma Informed Care.
Oh, so it is really quite.
It's really prevalent, and it's across across all sectors.
Because the notion of trauma as being a significant impacting event in childhood and then later life, it's only relatively recent, in the last 10-20 years or so, that we've had lots of neuroscience and such findings that bring that out. So this is very, very contemporary then.
Yeah, I think so, and I think in homelessness services as well, particularly in this country, people are just starting to think about it. I think we've always known that people don't just choose to become homeless. There's some kind of factors that have led them to be there, but to kind of like label it and to specifically talk about it is quite a modern.
Yeah, because if you listen to people's stories, you know that they've been through an enormous amount in their survivors and so on and so on.
Yeah.
But to actually then take out that particular issue of trauma makes it somehow researchable and intelligible and acceptable. And
we get lots of training on kind of mental health awareness, specific mental illnesses, substance abuse, managing challenging behaviour. There's lots of training on those kind of things. But until I went to the States, I'd never had training specifically about trauma, how it affects the brain, how it affects cognition.
And this really brought it together for you.
It really completely changed the way that I viewed how I worked with people.
Brilliant.
Yeah, really.
So, could you then spell out for us a little bit some of the key areas that trauma-informed care focuses on or sheds new light on? Or
so I can only speak about what I saw in the States, but what the Centre for Urban Community Services were doing was making it an integral part of their service delivery. So core training for all staff that were having a significant contact with the client, so all frontline services, outreach teams, housing, and people like the maintenance teams and some administrators.
And reception staff and so on, because they're actually key gatekeepers, literally.
And the maintenance teams are going into people where people are living and that kind of thing. So biopsychosocial training day, which I attended, and then they were starting to implement and share out across the teams really simple interventions that could be used with people. So mindfulness skills and how to talk to people about their trauma, and what they were aiming to do was very slowly over time to start introducing more and more interventions so that they just became part of everyday practice rather than something specifically that people had to do.
So it's not something that was beginning, a middle and an end and a programme that you go through, it's just something gradually because it becomes part of their life.
Yeah, the management acknowledged that the staff have a lot to do anyway, so they didn't want it to be just another thing that they were introducing, but that this was just kind of infiltrating everything that they did. And for example, the mindfulness interventions, it started off with senior management using it with team managers in their meetings, team managers using it with staff, and
so
then staff
really
using
it
infuses the whole organisation.
Yeah. And it's so important to get buy-in from the top, and for the organisation itself to embody what it is it's trying to deliver.
Exactly. So they're doing that.
And at this point, the video cuts out, which does at least, I guess, go to show that we're all of us on a bit of a steep learning curve here, learning new skills, learning new ideas, new technology. The other thing I learned was never take video against the sun, because you can't see anything. Still, if that has at least whetted your appetite, you'll find the rest of the interview with Jo on the links that you can follow. And after all, it is just her and I talking, so to some extent the pictures give a little vitality, but it's what she actually has to say. And she talks about how she has been able to implement this new understanding that she's gained from the services in her own work in London. You'll find as well the article that we published in Housing Care and Support in the library section, and there are links there not just to her own slightly different version of the same article on the HomelessLink website, but also all of the diaries that all of the transatlantic exchange students took, and there's some really vivid stuff there about some really active learning. And learning is really what it's all about. So look out for the next video in this series.